Hello, this is Melanie Guralnick, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the January 6th issue of the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first story is ChatGPT Used to Name New Year's Baby in Maryland by Danette Wilford. A baby born in the U.S. shortly after midnight on New Year's Day was named using artificial intelligence. Because apparently no one wants to think for themselves anymore. Or perhaps Sarah and Stephen Winkler exhausted all their efforts in coming up with the ideal moniker. What did ChatGPT come up with? Carroll Hospital Center, part of LifeBridge Health in Westminster, Maryland, announced in a Facebook post that the Winkler son was Carroll County's first baby of 2026. Welcome to the world, Hudson Oakley Winkler. The hospital noted that Sarah is a teacher who was also born there, while Stephen is a Westminster police officer. Why use AI? The couple, who live in West Friendship, told the Baltimore Sun that after deciding on their son's name months ago, they turned to AI once more to find his second name. We were looking up on ChatGPT boy names that go well with the last name Winkler, they told the outlet. And then, once we found Hudson Winkler, we're like, give us a good middle name. Sarah revealed that her due date was actually Boxing Day, with the parents-to-be thinking they might even have a Christmas baby. Instead, Hudson was born at 4:19 a.m. on January 1, weighing in at 6 pounds, 9 ounces, and measuring 21 inches. The hospital celebrated the family of 3. Quote, "Cheers to our next generation and the new family traditions that come along with them." Popular baby names in Toronto. Here in Toronto, the most popular baby names of 2024 were revealed, and no, Hudson did not make the cut. So if the Winklers were hoping for an original name out of ChatGPT, they got it. Muhammad was the top boy's name in the city, topping the ever-popular Noah, while Emma edged out Olivia as the favorite among girls. That story was ChatGPT Used to Name New Year's Baby in Maryland by Danette Wilford. The next story is Sydney Sweeney Goes Buck Naked and Glam for Steamy Magazine Shoot by Danette Wilford. Sydney Sweeney has a penchant for showing off her curves, all while keeping things elegant. So, for her latest photo shoot, the Euphoria star pulled off both, by stripping down and going glam. The 28-year-old actress was celebrated for her 2 recent big-screen endeavors, The Housemaid and Christie, by W Magazine and featured in its annual Best Performances issue, which was released on January 6. In 2 of the photos, shared on social media by the actress and the publication, Sweeney posed completely nude in gold body paint with only a Chopard Haute Jolière necklace on. Sweeney's blonde bob was styled in vintage pinup waves, reminiscent of Marilyn Monroe. The last photo, which Sweeney signed Sid with a heart, features the Anyone But You star looking fresh and youthful in a more modern, bejeweled, high-necked top. Getting the housemaid made. In her interview with W Magazine, the Emmy nominee revealed that she was obsessed with The Housemaid and was determined to make it into a movie. I was a huge fan of the book. The moment I opened the first page, I did not put it down until I finished, Sweeney revealed. I knew there was a script circulating, and I went after it. Keeping Sid and Christie separate. The White Lotus actress also opened up about how despite her transformation into legendary boxer Christy Martin, she was able to keep the character at a distance from real life. Quote, "I've always trained myself to separate as much as I can from my characters and not put my own thoughts or memories into a scene," she explained. "It allows me to know that a character is the one experiencing those moments, feelings, and scenarios. I'm not." She added, "When they call cut, I'm able to just jump out of it and be back to Sid." Aside from debunking speculation that she's had work done, she's not, Sweeney also defended her American Eagle campaign, while sharing a sexy topless pic, of course. "I was honestly surprised by the reaction," the actress told People magazine about the Sydney Sweeney Has Great Genes ad. "Anyone who knows me knows that I'm always trying to bring people together," she added. "I'm against hate and divisiveness." Okay, so that naked picture is in this article. It is very artistic, I'll give it that. So Sydney Sweeney is lit in very soft, almost like candlelight lighting, and she is seated, but you can only see it from her thighs up. She's got one hand covering her left breast, the other hand is on her thigh, and the background is black, and the back of her is kind of in shadows. And then they took that and they flipped it kind of so that she's horizontal, even though this picture was taken of her sitting up. Photo credit goes to Tyrone LeBon with W Magazine. That story was Sydney Sweeney Goes Buck Naked and Glam for Steamy Magazine Shoot by Danette Wilford. The next story is Blue Jays free agent Bo Bichette gets jaw-dropping offer from Toronto restaurant by Dan Bilicki. Star free agent Bo Bichette already has plenty of reasons to return to the Blue Jays. Friends, familiarity, money. But one Toronto steakhouse is ensuring that he'll never go hungry. Animal, a Toronto steakhouse and cocktail den located on Wellington Street, is offering Bichette, quote, steak for life, if he re-signs with the Blue Jays. The restaurant, the name is pronounced like animal, it's spelled ANIML, made the rather juicy offer in a post on Instagram on Monday. Dear Bo Bichette, the post reads, Toronto suits you. The city, the energy, the fans, it all feels right, much like a perfectly cooked steak. At Animal, we believe in commitments that last, the craft, the care, and the city we call home. In that spirit, we ask you to re-sign with the Toronto Blue Jays and consider this our promise. Steak for life on us. No negotiations, no fine print. Just a standing reservation at our table. Stay in Toronto. We'll handle dinner, you bring home the hardware. The offer was signed by, quote, your favorite restaurant, along with a clip to back up the claim. What is Bichette's favorite restaurant? During an interview in August, Bichette gave a shout-out to Animal when asked about his top dining spot in the city. There's a new restaurant named Animal, he said. It's really good. I love it. While Bichette is sure to cash in big time in free agency, he is projected to earn between $25 and $30 million per year when he signs a new contract. There is no harm in saving a bit of cash dining out. Eating at Animal isn't cheap either, with their signature cuts ranging from $68 for a 6-ounce petite filet to $275 for a massive 40-ounce porterhouse. Charming Kawhi Leonard. Bichette isn't the first Toronto free agent to receive offers of free food from restaurants around town. After helping the Raptors capture the 2019 NBA championship, Kawhi Leonard received offers from more than 50 restaurants as an incentive to stay via the Kawine and Dine initiative, which ultimately fell short as Leonard joined the Los Angeles Clippers. What's next for Bichette? Bichette recently had several teammates attend his wedding in St. Petersburg, Florida. With his nuptials out of the way, Bichette now has some pressing baseball business at hand. He remains one of the best free agents on the market, and reportedly has received major interest from the Jays, New York Yankees, and Los Angeles Dodgers. He also may remain on the radar of the Boston Red Sox, who recently made an aggressive pitch to free agent third baseman Alex Bregman. Toronto's signing of Japanese star Kazuma Okamoto, who will be unveiled at a Tuesday afternoon news conference, doesn't rule out the Blue Jays bringing back Bichette or splashing cash for star slugger Kyle Tucker. After being hampered by injuries for most of the 2024 season, Bichette had a bounce-back 2025 campaign. While helping spur the Jays on their run to the World Series, Bichette hit .311 with 18 home runs and 94 RBIs. There's a picture of Bo Bichette. He is seen on the baseball field, and apparently he had just hit a 2-run home run against the Texas Rangers, and he's in his Blue Jays uniform. He's grabbing, it looks like a black mask on his face, and he's looking up, perhaps to see if he'd actually hit the home run. Not sure. Photo credit goes to Ron Jenkins via Getty Images. That story was Blue Jays free agent Bo Bichette gets jaw-dropping offer from Toronto restaurant, by Dan Balicki. The next story is Hunter, a crystal ball peek into the crime world of 2026, by Brad Hunter. At the bottom of the stained china cup lay the future. My grandmother was a whiz at reading tea leaves, and family celebrations were incomplete if she didn't take a peek into the future. Old Francis could be chillingly accurate, or if there were too many fortunes to be told, keenly generic. Are you expecting money? There's a horse in your cup. That's good. Now, I'm going to try and channel that beloved woman. I'm going to look into the old criminal crystal ball and try to predict what lies ahead. Prediction number 1. Former Olympic snowboarder turned Sinaloa cartel little buddy Ryan Wedding will not be having a great year. In November, the 44-year-old Thunder Bay native made the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He is suspected of being the largest dope kingpin in Canada, orchestrating murders and moving tons of cocaine and methamphetamine north over the U.S. border in tractor trailers, in conjunction with Peel Punjabi gangsters. Outcome: the FBI is offering a $15 million reward for info leading to Wedding's capture. The balding snowboarder is being protected by Sinaloa, but how long will they tolerate the heat? By year's end, Wedding will be behind bars or toe-tagged in a Mexican morgue. Prediction number 2. Murder will be back, baby. The last time Toronto had so few murders, Madonna, Prince, and Janet Jackson ruled the charts. That's 1986 if you're counting. There were just 42 homicides in 2025. Compare that to 84 murders in 2024. Not just that, in 2025, cops closed 86% of the slayings. TPS expects the closure rate to climb. Great work, cops! But the raging opioid epidemic has not subsided, nor have open borders, nor has soft bail and junk justice, and a wildly out-of-control judiciary. Sherlock Holmes might be pressed. Prediction number 3. Organized crime, the pros, has offloaded murder to street gangs looking for guns, drugs, or blow. In turn, the street gangs are pushing murder onto their youngest members. Reason? Gangbangers know the kids will get a sweet ride through the justice system. And because their names are protected, they get to blow some other guy's brains out when released. Next, most Canadians are done with the kid gloves. Nearly 1/3 of Toronto's murders were allegedly committed by kids, 13. Some woke think tank nutters believe the age should be raised to, let's say, 20. Prime Minister Mark Carney has shown that ideology and delighting the fangirls at Teen Vogue are not a priority. Things are going to get tougher for the kids. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Prediction number 4. How about some order in the court? Thanks to the Trudeau government's maximum insanity with bail at all costs for everyone, everywhere, no matter how vile the criminal or the crime. And if you see a nutty decision, look up the judge. Chances are they were appointed by Trudeau and David Lametti, who was Minister of Justice from 2019 to 2023. Those are the years Team Trudeau went all in on appointing whack job activists to the bench, who tossed serious crimes, meted out laughable sentences, and let convicted criminals stay in the country. See Justice Renu Mandani, the former head of the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and activist Justice Avi Yao Yao Go. Oh, and remember them. Next. Remember when Supreme Court Justice Mary Give-a-Pedo-a-Break Moreau struck down the mandatory minimum on child pornography? We do. And so do a whole slew of cops, victims, and advocates. Most Canadians agree that, yeah, child pornography is a bad thing, and that, well, where there's smoke, there is definitely fire. Change is demanded. Have a great 2026. There is a picture of the accused drug lord Ryan Wedding. It's in a new photo released by the FBI. He is, I think he's in a hospital bed, and you can just see his head and shoulders. He's got blue eyes, brown hair, and a mustache and beard, and he's almost looking peaceful, smiling at the camera. And you can see on his bedside table there's all kinds of bottles of drugs and things. Photo courtesy of the FBI. That story was Hunter, a crystal ball peek into the crime world of 2026 by Brad Hunter. The next story is Lily. Mark Carney doesn't have time to move slowly on new pipeline by Brian Lilly. Donald Trump said the Venezuelan oil industry could be booming again in 18 months. Here in Canada, we might have finished the first round of consultations on a new pipeline, but we won't have concluded the court challenges to it. This is the dilemma Canada is facing. We are still moving at Ottawa speed, meaning slow, while the Americans are talking about a breakneck pace in restoring Venezuela's oil industry. Several analysts have said it will take between 5 to 10 years for Venezuela's oil infrastructure to be rebuilt given years of neglect and decay. Trump, speaking to NBC in an interview exclusively, doesn't buy that and says he thinks it can happen in less than 18 months. I think we could do it in less time than that, but it'll be a lot of money, Trump told NBC. A tremendous amount of money will have to be spent, and the oil companies will spend it, and then they'll get reimbursed by us or through revenue. Trump will meet with oil company executives at the White House on Wednesday to discuss how to achieve this goal. Conservatives call for quick action. Those doubting Trump's ability to move at speed, those counting on any rebuilding taking a decade, are relying on hope, and hope is not a strategy. Both Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, have called on Prime Minister Mark Carney's government to move with a sense of urgency on issues like pipelines. Quote, recent events surrounding Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro emphasize the importance that we expedite the development of pipelines to diversify our oil export markets, Smith posted to social media. In the early hours of Tuesday, Poilievre, released an open letter to Carney calling for immediate action. We need to move millions of barrels a day to overseas markets quickly to reduce our dependence on the U.S. market. That is why Canada must immediately approve a pipeline to the Pacific coast, Poilievre wrote. Carney plodding along like nothing's changed. That's the kind of urgency we need. But speaking to reporters in Paris, where he was attending meetings, Carney showed all the urgency of a bureaucrat on lunch break. It's been our view, and we're working towards this, that Canadian oil will be competitive because it is low risk, Carney said. He went on to say that Canadian oil will also be competitive because it is low cost and low carbon. I want to support our industry as much as possible, but lying to ourselves that we are low risk is a bad idea. It's true that the risks are different than in Venezuela, where the issue is corruption, but the risk in Canada is due to uncertainty from bureaucratic red tape, protesters being given free rein to block projects, endless court challenges, and a government apparatus that allows all of this. Justin Trudeau's government didn't buy the Trans Mountain pipeline because he wanted to. He bought it because the company was walking away in frustration over endless delays caused by either government policy or indifference. We could argue that Carney is different, that he's promising to move quickly, but he hasn't shown that to be true yet. New pipeline is no certainty. All that agreement Carney signed with Smith does is to promise to declare a pipeline to the Pacific Coast a priority that can be referred to the Major Projects Office by July 1, 2026. As Carney himself said in November, getting a project referred doesn't mean it will get built. Referring to the MPO, or the Major Projects Office, does not mean the project is approved. It means that all the efforts are being put in place from the federal government in order to create the conditions so it can move forward, Carney said. So Trump promises that he can get Venezuela's oil industry up and running again in 18 months, and Carney says he can get a pipeline project sent for consideration by July 1. From there, the MPO will take 6 months to a year to consider the proposal. Then there would be First Nations consultations and court cases, so we're talking several years before anything begins. The biggest threat to Canada's oil industry in the short term isn't Venezuelan oil replacing Canadian barrels. It's Venezuela taking up all the capital investment dollars that Canada needs to compete. Speed and urgency are of essence, and we seem to be lacking both. There is a picture of Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, and U.S. President Donald Trump as they chat during the FIFA World Cup 2026 official draw. It's at the John F. Kennedy Center, which is now called something else in addition to that, and it was taken on December 5th of 2025. You can see that they're standing next to each other. They're both in dark blue suits, white shirts, and Trump has on a red tie where Mark Carney has on a burgundy tie. They both have national flag pins on their lapels, and Trump is obviously talking to Mark. His hands are out, he looks very engaged, and Mark Carney is turned and looking at him with his mouth slightly open. Photo courtesy of Dan Mullen via Getty Images. That story was Lily. Mark Carney doesn't have time to move slowly on new pipeline, by Brian Lilly. The next story is Introduction of Blue Jays' new slugger Kazuma Okamoto leaves more questions than answers, by Mike Ganter. The Blue Jays introduced their newest slugger, Kazuma Okamoto, to the Toronto media on Tuesday. Okamoto gave a brief and somewhat robotic statement introducing himself and thanking the Jays for the opportunity and promised to work hard. However, even with the benefit of a translator, Okamoto did not provide much more of a window into the person that he is. At various times throughout the question and answer period, translator Gino Gordon, a member of the Boris Corporation, whose founder and owner Scott Boris serves as Okamoto's agent, laughed at responses from Okamoto, suggesting there is a real sense of humor there, but neglected to translate that portion of the response to those in attendance. At one point, Gordon was asked point blank what was he laughing at following an exchange with Okamoto, and only explained, quote, "He's got an interesting personality, that's all." As a translator, Gordon clearly fell short of his duties, paraphrasing all of Okamoto's responses and making any direct quoting of the slugger, short of his own abbreviated introduction, impossible. Here are a few more takeaways from the afternoon. What did we learn? The Blue Jays owe a debt of gratitude to their logo and Okamoto's daughter for his decision to sign in Toronto. While he admitted he very much liked the city of Toronto and was impressed with the support he saw from the fan base during the World Series, a major turning point in his decision came when Okamoto presented the logos of every MLB team to his daughter and asked her which one she liked the most. Her reply was the Blue Jays, and that stuck with her dad through his decision process. How will Okamoto be used? That remains unclear. While he is open to playing either first or third base, both positions he played for the Yomiuri Giants of Nippon Professional Baseball in Japan, Okamoto said he was willing to play wherever his team needed him the most. Capable of both power, 248 career home runs over 9 seasons, and an ability to get on base, a career .277 hitter with a .366 on base percentage, Okamoto will be in the top half of the Jays lineup. He has played both first and third, plus some outfield, though 52 of this game's last season came at third and the other 27 were at first. The party line from all involved is it was still a conversation that will be had between management and the player. What number will he wear? Okamoto will wear number 7, a number he has always wanted to wear since he turned professional, but was not available to him with Yomiuri. He considers the number 7 lucky. Does he have any nicknames? From Boris, Okamoto has been called the Big Oak. When he was with the Giants, he was called Big Baby, and by his former manager, there he was referred to as the Young General. Okamoto himself seems to be fine with Kazoo, according to his translator. What do the Jays like about his game? GM Ross Atkins was like a kid unwrapping his favorite Christmas gift as he explained how much the Jays covet their new slugger. It's been exciting to watch him over the years, Atkins said. He has an incredible career thus far. The impact on both sides of the ball, the offensive abilities are as dynamic as it comes. It fits us very well. The contact ability against high velo, against all types of pitching, really any caliber of pitching, he has been able to not only make contact, but drive the ball, which is about as good of a compliment as we could ask for. Are the Jays done adding? Atkins did his best to provide an answer for this without really providing any real insight. You have heard me say probably too many times to count that we will always be open to making our organization and team better. We have made it better, so we do feel good about our team, Atkins said. One thing I would add is that any additions at this point would start to cut away at playing time for players that we feel are very good major league pieces, so we would have to factor that in. But we have always had incredible support from ownership. What about Bo Bichette specifically? Does this signing impact him coming back or not? Again, Atkins was less than forthcoming on this question. Quote, all the things I have said previously, if there is an opportunity for us to think about as far as improving the organization, we are going to always lean into creative ways to do so. And we have always had incredible support, he said. What about Okamoto's injury last season? The elbow injury Okamoto sustained last May that limited him to just 69 games did not come up on Tuesday. He sustained the injury playing first base as he reached for an off-target throw from his third baseman and collided solidly with the oncoming base runner. The injury occurred in game number 32 of the season, so he did return and play an additional 37 games after that. He had 7 more homers and 24 RBIs in those final 37 games. It was the first significant injury in 9 seasons for Okamoto, who has been very durable throughout his career. There is a picture of the newly signed Toronto Blue Jays infielder Kazuma Okamoto. He is receiving his jersey and cap from the Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins. It's at a press conference, so you can see a microphone in the front, and Okamoto is looking at the blue baseball hat that's being handed to him by Ross Atkins, and he's wearing a white Blue Jays jersey that says Blue Jays across the chest. Photo courtesy of Ernest Dorzuk via the Toronto Sun. That story was Introduction of Blue Jays new slugger Kazuma Okamoto leaves more questions than answers, by Mike Ganter. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is Kinsella. Well-organized leftist fringe pivot quickly to protest Venezuela campaign, by Warren Kinsella. It's axiomatic. When you do something a lot, you get better at it. So when you do lots of campaigns, you get better at campaigns. Witness the variously pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic leftist fringe that magically transformed itself into the anti-US, anti-Trump, pro-Maduro leftist fringe over the weekend. Within hours, with military precision. Here, in Canada, and around the world. Says Canadian lawyer and expert Karima Saad, quote, "Since the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, I've covered and reviewed footage from Cambridge, Toronto, and Ottawa that suggests convergence between the anti-Israel and anti-American protesters. Everything is viewed through what they'd consider an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-oppression lens. From land back to safe supply, to free Palestine, to trans rights, and now hands-off Venezuela. Worldwide propaganda campaign. And as I document in my Random House book, The Hidden Hand, out next month, a worldwide propaganda campaign against Israel and the West commenced in the early hours of October 7, 2023, when Hamas murdered, raped, and brutalized thousands of Jews in Israel. The campaign had lots of money, organizers, protesters, and tested messages mostly aimed at Gen Zs and millennials. It has been a massive success. The anti-Israel, anti-Semitic side has overwhelmed their targets by a factor of 50 to 1. And by running so many protests for more than 2 years, the anti-Semites and the bigots have acquired undeniable skills. Their messaging and tactics have dwarfed the feeble pro-Israel, pro-Western effort. So, on Saturday, as word started to spread that the U.S. has captured Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, the far-left Israel haters remade themselves. Acclaimed American investigative reporter Azra Q. Nomani documented the transformation for Fox News. Quote, "An analysis of their minute-by-minute moves overnight reveals how this network activated a coordinated ideological and information warfare campaign, moving through digital social media channels with quickly produced posters to mobilize foot soldiers to the streets for an emergency day of action in New York City, Washington, D.C., and an estimated 100 other cities, moving with the speed and discipline of an organized military operation, Nemani found. Focus shift took literally minutes. The shift took minutes, literally minutes. U.S. Special Forces landed in Venezuela at 1:35 a.m. on Saturday. Breakthrough News, a socialist online propaganda outlet, started publishing video of the attack almost immediately. Just 10 minutes later, Manolo de los Santos, who, as I document in my book, is the main spokesperson for the far-left anti-Israel People's Forum, posted, quote, "Trump has launched an illegal bombing campaign. Families, children, people sleeping in their homes across Caracas are under attack. Bombings confirmed. This is a war crime. Stop the bombing of Venezuela." End quote. The People's Forum, which is led by a far-left, anti-Israel billionaire, Neville Roy Singham, out of Shanghai, speedily organized anti-U.S., pro-Maduro protests across the United States. 10 minutes. That's all it took for the anti-West, far-left movement to spread the word, while most of us were still asleep. And less than 1 hour after U.S. troops had landed in Venezuela, Nemani documented the Anti-Israel Answer Coalition started advertising a protest that would take place in Times Square that same morning. Protests here in Canada. Here in Canada, an identical phenomenon could be seen. Before Maduro had even been arraigned in Manhattan, a well-attended protest happened in front of the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa. Another weekend protest took place in Montreal, and one in Vancouver. In Ottawa, keffiyeh-clad protesters waving Palestinian flags mixed with academics and other carrying pro-communist signs. The Globe and Mail even quoted protester Deanna Sheriff, which it benignly called, quote, a property manager of housing co-ops, while Sharif carried a sign calling Donald Trump a pedophile. Sharif published a photograph of herself standing under a Palestinian flag at the pro-Maduro protest under the headline, quote, "Globalize the Intifada." The Globe did not also note, however, that Sharif is a longtime organizer of anti-Israel protests, who was convicted in July 2025 of causing a disturbance and breaching her bail conditions, arising out of charges of assault with a weapon, intimidation, and hate-motivated harassment. A June 2025 court order had barred her from attending any protests or even posting about conflicts on social media, lawyer Saad says. Saad notified the Ottawa Police Service about Sharif's presence at the anti-U.S. protest. She has yet to receive a response. The bottom line: the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic leftist fringe have gotten more bold and much more organized everywhere. They now have the resources, the money, the tactics, the strategy, and the people to turn on a dime and promote new causes that demonize the West within minutes. Concludes Karima Saad, quote, "The rapidity of this shift makes it likely that many frequent protesters are simply programmable. They'll chant whatever the crowd is chanting without burdening themselves with the details." End quote. There is a picture of protesters marching outside of the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa that was taken on January 4th. And you could see there's lots of people there in coats and hats, and many are wearing masks or face coverings. The person closest to the camera is holding a sign that says "Hands off Venezuela" with a Venezuelan flag, and many people behind him are carrying flags of all different types. Photo courtesy of Ashley Fraser via Post Media. That story was Kinsella. Well-organized leftist fringe pivot quickly to protest Venezuela campaign, by Warren Kinsella. The next story is Mandel. Rare life sentence for mentally ill man guilty of manslaughter in Toronto DJ's beating death, by Michel Mandel. In a bold move that prioritizes the safety of the public for a change, a mentally ill killer has been sentenced to a rare life sentence for manslaughter. Rico Harvey's lawyer had asked for time served. But Ontario Superior Court Justice Robert Goldstein even went above the 16 to 20-year term that prosecutors had requested for Harvey, who was convicted in 2024 of manslaughter by a jury in the senseless and vicious May 2020 beating death of popular gay village DJ Peter Ellie. Nothing less than a life sentence will protect the public, the judge said Tuesday. Charged with first-degree murder. Harvey was charged with first-degree murder after Ellie's battered body was discovered in the laundry room of his Balliol Street apartment building. The homeless man admitted killing the 52-year-old, but testified Ellie provoked him by calling him the N-word and threatening to call the police to shoot him, claims Goldstein firmly rejected. Mr. Harvey administered a beating to Mr. Ellie that was lengthy, shocking, brutal, and deadly, he said. His anger was not justified in any way. There was no provocation. Mr. Harvey did not just beat Mr. Ellie, he tried to degrade him. Harvey battled mental illness for years, court heard. Court heard Harvey, 33, has battled mental illness since he was 20 and was repeatedly taken to hospital by his long-suffering mother or the police when he went off his medication and turned aggressive and violent. He was variably diagnosed with depression, bipolar disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and adjustment disorder. The homeless man, wearing an open jacket with no shirt, had slipped into 155 Balliol and was seen rifling through mail and laundry and pressing all the buttons in the elevators. It was May 13, 2020, just before midnight, when Ellie was attacked, likely after confronting Harvey about trespassing and stealing some of his laundry. Captured on security video, Harvey sucker punched the unsuspecting tenant in the head from behind, sending him to the floor, and then proceeded to punch him at least 6 times, kick him 4 times, and then stomp on his body. He emptied Ellie's laundry basket on him and then stomped on him again. He then dragged him into the bathroom to, quote, humiliate him, Harvey testified. 5 minutes later, the cameras captured Harvey now punching Ellie outside the laundry room and then striking him with a fire extinguisher. He turned off the lights and continued to attack him as Ellie lay helpless on the floor, emptied garbage on him, and then hit him several times with the metal can. Died of blunt force trauma. An autopsy concluded that poor man died from blunt force trauma to his head and neck. Known professionally as Blue Peter in his DJ work at Woody's and other venues in the village, Ellie was remembered as kind, gentle, and loving. Quote, DJ Blue Peter was the heart and soul of many of our gathering spaces for over 20 years, where he shared his passion for music and bringing our communities together. The 519 Church Street Community Center wrote on social media at the time. I find that this was a manslaughter that is as close to a murder as it is possible for a manslaughter to be. The killing of Mr. Ellie was brutal, shocking, protracted, intensely violent, and unprovoked. I also find that Mr. Harvey is a dangerous man. He will suffer from mental illness for the rest of his life. As Dr. Chatterjee testified, he cannot be cured, Goldstein said. High risk to offend. Psychiatrist. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Samita Chatterjee concluded in her court-ordered assessment that Harvey poses a, quote, high risk to reoffend violently, unless he's in a structured and supervised setting that ensures he takes his medication and abstains from cannabis. Quote, he has never willingly abstained from illegal drugs, nor taken his prescribed medications for long periods of time, except under very strict controls and supervision. Mr. Harvey will remain ill, and he will remain at risk of discontinuing his medication and taking up self-medication. When he does that, he is in a danger to himself and others. The judge noted that after the fatal beating, Harvey also set the garbage on fire in the laundry room, which put all the residents of the building at risk. Quote, the protection of the public requires that Mr. Harvey never be in a position where he's unsupervised, Goldstein concluded. Lives may literally depend upon it. That story was Mandel. Rare life sentence for mentally ill man guilty of manslaughter in Toronto DJ's beating death by Michel Mandel. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is OnlyFans models and influencers rule U.S., quote, exceptional artist visas. Quote, Scroll Kings and Queens by Spiro Papakowski. International OnlyFans models and influencers who moved to the U.S. after being granted an extraordinary artist visa have reportedly outnumbered foreign-born artists, actors, and musicians. Immigration lawyers and talent agents say an increasing number of social media stars have inquired about applying for the O-1B visa since the COVID-19 pandemic, which is typically reserved for exceptional creatives. The, quote, Scroll Kings and Queens have successfully outnumbered others in the arts industries looking to work in America, according to one New York immigration lawyer. I knew the days of representing iconic names like Boy George and Sinead O'Connor were over, Michael Wilds told the Financial Times. Another immigration lawyer said the, quote, extraordinary artist visa is easier to obtain for those with a large presence on social media, because their followers and viewership are easily quantifiable. Quote, a layperson is very easily impressed by a large number of followers, said Electra Yao, founding partner of the Yao Law Group. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. Fiona McEntee, founding partner of the McEntee Law Group, said an influencer hired to promote a brand and make an appearance at a store could be considered the equivalent of someone starring in a live theater production. It really is a skill. If you think about how many people are on social media every day and how few people actually make a living from it, it is really a skill, McEntee said. However, one immigration lawyer said influencers have cheapened the application process and shouldn't be awarded the visa. We have scenarios where people who should never have been approved are getting approved for O1s, said Protima Dariana, a managing partner of the Dariana Law Group. It's been watered down because people are just meeting the categories. While the number of O-1B visas have shot up by 50% in the past decade, very few are handed out on a yearly basis, according to the report. In 2024, there were less than 20,000 O-1 visas granted, with the vast majority awarded to skilled foreign workers in the tech and science industries. Less than 1/10 went to O-1B applicants. The O-1B visa traces its way back to Leon Wilds, Michael Wilds' late father, when he gained attention after President Richard Nixon and his administration sought to deport Beatles heartthrob John Lennon and his artist wife Yoko Ono in 1972. He took on the case and appealed for Lennon to remain in the U.S. as an, quote, outstanding person in the arts of sciences, which wound up being successful 4 years later. That legal victory, along with his law review articles on U.S. immigration, eventually led to Congress formalizing the O-1B visa in the Immigration Act of 1990. That story was OnlyFans models and influencers rule U.S. exceptional artist visas. Quote, Squirrel Kings and Queens by Spiro Papakowski. The next story is Warmington. Video of man with sword in Toronto Park prompts many questions by Joe Warmington. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Or in this case, wave a sword around, only to have the strange scene captured on video, leaving many questions unanswered following what can only be described as a bizarre incident at a popular downtown city park. Was the sword in question even real? And is the video clip circulating widely on social media current? One thing is clear. It's not always easy being a police officer in a big city. In incidents involving replica guns, it's difficult to complain when police take immediate action, because in the heat of the moment, it sure would be tough for officers to determine if that weapon is real or not. It's perhaps more complex, however, with the sword, especially when it is being carried around or swung in a park, and not being used in a crime. You have to feel for police officers having to deal with this kind of situation. Toronto police have done very well dealing with the individual in this particular incident. Not a real sword. With today's social media, you just never know if what you're being presented with is real, or at least current. But reporters and police still have to check it out. And that's what we all did with the strange video playing across social media alongside a horror movie-like score. In the video clip, the man is seen waving around a sword in what seems like a strange performance of some kind at Trinity Bellwoods Park. The video is real, police say. The man, who may have some medical issues, is seen playing around with what appears to be a sword. The problem, cops say, is that this viral video was actually taken a year ago. One question that came up was whether there was a criminal code violation in this instance. Section 88(1) of the Criminal Code states, quote, every person commits an offense who carries or possesses a weapon, an imitation of a weapon, a prohibited device, or any ammunition or prohibited ammunition for a purpose dangerous to the public peace, or for the purpose of committing an offense, could face imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years. But police say there was no violation here, no matter what it looked like. Police say it was a plastic sword and he was doing a martial arts performance, something police said he often does in this park. It was not done with any precision, and at one point the man can be seen falling off the elevated area before throwing the sword in the air. Mental health concerns. You can see the potential trouble such a scene could be for police, for the public walking by, and for the guy with the mock sword too. Toronto Police Deputy Chief Rob Johnson said officers in 14 Division know this man and interact with him, and at this time there appears to be no public safety issue. They also are sensitive to any mental health issues they encounter in the street, and they offer medical services. Guns are real, though. The real problem in Toronto and across the GTA is that guns are everywhere, and they're not fake ones. They're loaded. One scary situation happened Christmas Day in 53 Division at Bloor and Yonge Streets, where cops alleged a man fled from police and, quote, after a brief foot pursuit, was arrested and in possession of a loaded firearm, a large quantity of cocaine, and a large quantity of cash. Jordan Agostino, 30, of Toronto, was arrested on many weapons and drug charges. Those charges have not been tested in court. The new year has seen many similar situations where police are pulling over cars and loaded weapons are being located. York Regional Police made an arrest Tuesday, and Peel Regional Police made an arrest Sunday. A new one came up in Brampton on Saturday, in which Peel Regional Police's 21st Division Community Intervention and Response Team, or CIRT, quote, arrested 4 18-year-old men after a loaded illegal handgun was located. Charged with the truckload of weapons charges are Joshua McLean Russell, Bernard Lee, Rashane Dennis, and Isaiah Campbell. They are innocent until proven guilty. That's a troubling amount of gun incidents in a little more than a week. Thankfully, police seized all of these weapons before a serious crime was committed. These types of gun possessions are becoming far too commonplace. In fact, if not for the guy with the sword, which turned out to be a plastic one, I might not even have written about the above incidents. That sword video, thankfully, turned out to not be a weapons story. The same can't be said about the guns circulating, however. They are real and dangerous. So I watched the sword video, and the man is definitely practicing with a fake sword. Yes, it's shiny, but plastic can be shiny. And he's throwing it up in the air, and he's doing like a little dance and twirling around. It looks very much like he's just practicing, but there is this really horrible, scary music playing at the same time, so it gives off this totally different impression. That story was Warmington. Video of Man with Sword in Toronto Park prompts many questions, by Joe Warmington. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the January 6th issue of the Toronto Sun. Your reader has been Melanie Guralnick. Thank you for listening.